Hey YouTube, how's it going? I'm back doing another deck profile today. I'm actually going to be bringing you guys Gran Torino this time. It's a character that I've actually liked since he first was shown off, and I just haven't put as much time into, honestly. Before I get into everything, please visit our friends over at unfunstuff.com. Be sure to shop for any of your set 3 stuff, any singles you need or anything like that, obviously at unfunstuff.com. If you haven't already subbed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. I'm going to end up uploading some gameplay videos as well, probably at least of Torino, and probably a couple of Dobby as well. If you guys are interested in seeing those, so be sure to sub to the channel. That way you guys can be notified when those goes live. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the deck profile. Of course, we're playing our character, Gran Torino. He's kind of like Coordinated Effort, a banned card that we have on his face at the cost of destroying a foundation, which is completely fine. And we're playing 2 copies of Capture Evildoers. This is strictly because you want to be able to snipe away momentum, things like Electric Jolts, Meteor Showers, any of those pesky face-up momentums you just want to get rid of. You don't get the momentum usage too much in this deck, but there's some small costs. We'll go to the attack light-ups. We have 4 copies of Back Alley Haymaker. I think this card's just kind of crazy. It's a charge, obviously. Every attack, except for one, we'll be able to use his response on. But being able to just open up with a stun 2, draw a card, be able to build it down if they decide to block it, or they just take 5 and you're fine, then it's an amazing card. I'm also running 4 copies of Hard-End Frenzy. Because of how often you're going to be building stuff in this deck, this is always going to be like a 5/5 for 5 that builds done after it resolves if they completely block it, which means you don't have to use his response to build it anymore, which is great. We have 3 copies of Airstream Driver in the deck. This is just a big fat move, obviously. It's a 6 high for 9 if they've decided to block something. If they end up blocking this, which they usually will, you get to build that down as well, and then get to reuse it again. And then being able to just seal an asset or foundation is just pretty good, obviously. Being able to cut off a piece of their interaction is always key. I'm running 3 copies of Cannon Blast. This is probably one of my favorite attacks in the deck because you can play this card and pass it completely and then commit a foundation to give it at least +1/+2. So it's already a 5/5 for 7. And even just at that, if they decide to block it, then you get to blow up that face down foundation that you committed to build this in, and then be able to play something else and then reuse it again with your character and then really pump stats onto it at that point. So it's just a really big beat stick that ends up killing people more often than not. I'm only running 3 copies of Capture Net, just because it's just really slow, but it does provide us another stun too, and it lets us build in our really cool foundations on our kill turn. So we can build in things like Small and Limbers to be able to get extra attack and damage on our moves. And then the only non-charge Fury or Kick is Hardened Jab, and this is just because it's a 1 high block, obviously, but it also picks up our face-down foundations, so that way we can easily get them back and reuse our attacks, or sometimes just get to reuse our really good foundations that we have access to on this symbol. To the foundation lineup, as you'll see, there are a lot of 4-ofs because I want all these cards I just want on my board, and so there's not really cutting them down to 3 at this point. It's kind of 4 or I guess 2 for me. But 4 specialists to sound. This is pretty much like the only reliable speed hate that we have on good, and so having 4 copies of this just means we can block our opponent's attacks. 4 copies of New Training Method. This card obviously lets you build further on your first turn, and being able to respond to pick up a foundation and add it to your hand to then blow up New Training Method after you've committed and flipped it to build down your attack when they block it, and then have a fodder to discard to pick it back up. Amazing. The card's great. 4 passing the torch. I will often go very, very far into a turn with like only 1 or 2 cards in hand, and just being able to draw 2 cards on it after I've strung together a lot of foundations or like a lot of attacks and gone to their turn with no cards in hand. Just too good. 4 copies of Small and Limber. This, like I said, other than Hardened Jab, this buffs any of the attacks in our deck, but a lot of times you get to buff and then you get to ready it in the same turn, so you can get easily 2 buffs on this. Counts as 3 foundations a lot of times in this deck, between itself readying itself on my turn and readying itself on my opponent's turn. 4 Manly Passionate guy. Because our speed hate is so small, I want to keep our progressive pretty low, and so that way we can block with our foundations and build them down at the same time to keep our card pool pretty clear. so we can just continuously block, because our health total obviously is pretty small. We're only a 26 health character on a 6 hand size, so you want to be able to block pretty consistently. I'm running 4x resistance. This was originally 4 copies of Precious Lesson, but I think the extra build from Precious Lesson doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Being able to just cancel my opponent's stun 2, because stun is just everywhere right now, obviously, is a big deal. Sometimes it's a breaker 1 block in hand, but it's also -2 damage on its face as well, which again, our low health character means that we can opt to not have to block one of those moves when we were giving it, you know, -2, -4 damage just for it coming in. 4 copies of Self-Sacrifice. I need a reliable way to blow up my foundations other than just my character. So this just provides us a way to be able to say, okay, I'm on defense and I have my committed small number. Let's go ahead and ready it and give -1 damage to this move at the same time. So, and it's also, obviously, it's a great low block. It's a +1 low on a spam. Amazing. 4 copies of Mainstream Success, destined for mainstream success. This just lets us see our top card of our deck to see if it's an attack and we draw it on our kill turns, or we just see that we have a good check. It's just good card, obviously. Plus we get to flip it, and then if we want to rebuy it possibly with like Hardened Gel, we can replay it again. It just gives us a bunch of card advantage. So to round out the 4 ofs, we have 4 copies of It Can't Be Fixed. It's a pretty crazy card. I don't need to go too much into It Can't Be Fixed. It's a 1 high block that wants them to not stun me at this point, so yeah, just one of those auto includes. It's the only 0 of in the deck, so I don't use the build on Back Alley too often. Plus, with 4 copies of New Training Method, it's pretty easy to reliably build 4 on turn 1, because you have New Training Method plus any 1 diff and 1 diff, and then build in a 1 diff committed. So I'm not usually worried about building 4 on 1. The last of our foundations is 2 copies of High Value Target. This just provides us extra ways to pass our blocks, obviously, because again, as I'm a broken record, we don't have speed hate in this deck really, other than specialist sound. So any way to help us block is good. But the list is already pretty big as it is, so I don't really see going up to more copies. And then 2 advice for winners. This just lets us not have, like, if we just check bad, we just say no and we recheck. And if we get unlucky and check 2 3s in a row, then I mean that's just luck. But the card's great, but it's only a 2 of. It's a bad block, and it's not needed in the deck, so it's only at a 2. And that rounds out the profile for Gran Torino. Like I said, I'm gonna get some videos uploaded for you guys of gameplay of this character, Dobby, other favorites that I just have in general. So please be sure to sub to the channel to see when those goes live. Like the video if you did like it, and then leave a comment in the section down below. Let me know what you guys want to see maybe next. If you want to see more of these deck profiles, or if you guys want to see more gameplay, or if even what character you want to see. I would definitely love to hear it. And I'll see you guys the next time that our fates cross.